I'm here with Lathrop City Administrator Don Moore. Uh, Lathrop has a big bond issue coming up April 3rd. Don, tell me a little bit about what you guys plan to do with this $4 million bond issue if it's passed.
Well, we've recently had an engineering study done on our water system, and the motivation to do something about some of the problems that they've talked about in their report comes from the engineering recommendations. And the first thing we're going to need to do is build a new water tower. One of the requirements from Kansas City Water Services is that we have 1.5 days supply on hand at all times. Well, right now we're able to maintain that with the current tower we have, but in the event of a drought or warm weather in the summertime, we would be very marginal if in fact be compliant. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we need to do is add another water tower to be sure we can continue that. Otherwise our rates will be go up just a little bit from Kansas City.
And talk a little bit too about the lines. I mean, it's really amazing how old this system is in Lathrop. We're talking about the first major infrastructure project taking place in 1924, and a lot of that system still remains. The tower and the lines. How big of a problem has that been for a city in this era?
Well, the water lines, we have several lines in town that are 2 and 3 inch, even some I think 1 inch lines. Very very few of those, but we have those are still in use, and they need to be replaced. A lot of them have buildup inside of them that reduces the flow. And we just recently are working with the Insurance Services Office, which does an audit, and they also work with fire protection, and a lot of the grading is done based on fire flow. And we have several areas in town that have a fire flow that's unacceptable. And that's one of the things we want to do is we want to change that. Along with replacing the lines, we want to make sure we have good fire flow. And one place that really needs it is the south part of Lathrop, where the elementary and the middle schools are located.
And tell me a little bit about how this will impact rates, because this is probably the biggest selling point for this as residents go to the polls in April. Is there's no anticipated raise of their rates, though this is a $4 million bond and a pretty substantial project.
Well, about 1.5 years ago, we actually had a rate study done by this same engineering firm, Ponzer Youngquist, and it was pointed out that we were way behind on what we should have been in order to sustain any improvements or to keep our system operating economically. And so the rates were raised about 1.5 years ago to try to get ready for this kind of a thing. So those rates are sufficient for us to go ahead and do a bond issue of this size. Whenever you have the bonds issue, whenever you issue the bonds, literally is when you start paying. And what's anticipated is that we would only issue, the first phase would be $2 million in bonds that would be issued, and that would be enough to put up the tower and to replace all the lines, I think, from 3 inch on down. And that's how we aim to handle this. And so, and also the pump stations that we put in 2006, that pays off in 2017. So it's potential that we would, once that's paid off, then that would free up about $130,000 a year for payment on bonds. So that's kind of how this is anticipated working. But the only rate change that the citizens would see would be whatever Kansas City passes on to us. As far as the bonds are concerned, they would not cause a rate change at all in the length of the time.
And lastly here, how needed is this project for the city of Lathrop?
Well, we've had issues whenever we open a fire hydrant to flush a line or or to do something, then some of the sediment that's built up will break loose, and we've had residents see that come through their pipes. And we've also experienced a lot of water leaks in certain areas of town on those old pipes. So that's one of the things that really needs to be corrected, and it's literally just kind of been let go all this time. But we're at the point now where the correction needs to be made.